Welcome everyone.
Hi everyone, welcome.
And we are here again and we are talking about again agility but in different perspective. Today we are again very excited because we will talk about the future of project management offices. So sometimes we are using the different names and we are naming it like a value management office, agile program management office, knowledge management office. It depends, but I think we will listen and we will listen that topic from the one of the global leaders. So we are very excited to listen, and I think we are ready to invite
Yeah,
our guest speaker will be Americo, and we are happy to invite him. Welcome, Americo.
Hello, Aaron. Hello, Ludwig. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. Thank you very much for your invitation.
that's our pleasure, Americo. Again, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see
And
you
I
too.
think when we talk about PMO, maybe we can keep it simple and we can start with the basic question because when we say PMO, everyone is understanding the different main, right? So we want to listen from your perspective and what is your thoughts about the role of PMO in the organizations?
By the way, you need to know that, Americo, we also have some challenging questions, right?
All right. This one is the easy one, right?
This is
So,
the easy one, yes, yes.
yeah. So, first of all, it's important to say that PMO Global Alliance uh, is the largest community of PMO professionals in the world, and it was acquired by PMI last December. So now I'm the managing director of PMOGA, but PMOGA is a sub community within PMI. So actually now I'm part of PMI and as one of its executives, and PMOGA now has great opportunities ahead because we are under the umbrella of this big organization, with many possibilities. So this is something quite new. We are now integrating products, processes, systems, everything, and by the third quarter, many great things will start to come up. So it's important to mention that. Well, at PMOGA, we have been studying PMOs and discussing with experienced PMO leaders what a PMO should be, right? It started years ago, 7 years ago, but all these studies and discussions actually started by 2010, so more than 10 years ago. And we always try to find what PMOs have in common, right? Because this is a big challenge. PMOs are very different. If you visit 10 different PMOs, you will find 10 different approaches, 10 different set of functions, services, the way that they are providing value for the organization. So differently from the most traditional approaches for project management, that you can have a consensus about what is the best way, right, of managing projects or managing portfolio. When we talk about PMOs, there are many perspectives, many points of view. So what they have in common basically is every PMO usually is a kind of organizational element, right? So an area that is working in some way with projects, programs, and portfolio, centralizing functions, because this way we can be more effective, we can generate more value. The point is how we can do that, right? And that's exactly what has been changing in the last years, because PMO is not something new, definitely, right? So 20 years, 30 years ago, we talked about PMOs a lot, but now there is a new wave, right? Because PMOs are becoming something very different in terms of focus, in terms of objectives, in terms of how they generate value for organizations. So I could say that PMOs now they are big partners for any organization, especially for the executive level, in terms of supporting them and enable them to deliver the strategy and deliver the outcomes that are expected from every PMO customer, including the executive level. So it's something complex in a certain way because, again, they can be very, very, very different, but all of them are going in the same direction to become something that can generate real value and perception of value for the organization and their customers.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, also, as PMGA, as you already mentioned about Americo, you are facing lots of different kind of PMOs and also different kind of organizations. So how can we evaluate the success of PMOs or maturity of PMOs in your mind and your experience?
Right, right. Yeah, this is an interesting point. Actually, today we already have a methodology named PMO Value Ring that now is it belongs to PMI. But by the end of the year, there will be something new coming up. It's a PMO practice guide, right, published by PMI that will amplify this approach and will bring something really interesting, really new for this area. But the answer to you about this question is uh, actually what we see today, right, is that PMOs, as I told you, they are becoming more and more focused on generating value. And this is the big discussion because when we talk about success and value, these things are connected in some way, right?
Sure.
So usually we try to define a successful PMO based on successful projects. But sometimes that's not exactly what happened because it depends on what your PMO is providing to the organization. Yes, it's true that obviously successful projects will be absolutely important. But depending on the scope of your PMO, which kind of functions you are providing, sometimes they are not 100% focused in individual projects, but in the portfolio as a whole, for example, right? So what I'm saying is we are talking about different roles. It happens in many different organizations. So what I usually say is that we have three levels that we have to measure to define the success of a PMO. The first one is very basic, uh, project success. We are talking about projects, right? But we have to be cautious because we need to understand the influence that we have on the success of these projects. Sometimes you can be only the messenger, for example, that is providing to the executives reports saying that projects are not going well. Again, you are the messenger, right? But you don't have any influence over the project manager. This is a simple example to show you how these things can vary. You know, sometimes you can support project managers when they are planning, so you have a little more influence. Sometimes we have PMOs, they are not the majority, but we have PMOs where the project managers are part of the PMO structure. So you have 100% of influence in project success, right? So this thing should be considered. So project success is one of these point of views. The other point of view is about how you are providing the services, the functions that you believe that should support the organization. For example, let's suppose that you are providing methodologies, right? So how can you measure if you are doing this in the right way, in the better way, with efficiency? Adoption rate, right? Project manager satisfaction with the methodology. What else? If people are trained in the methodology or not. All of these indicators can help you to measure if you are providing that function in the right way. I'm not talking about the impact in projects because it's quite difficult to show, that a methodology is making our project successful. There is a big distance between these two things, but there is a way to measure if you are doing in the best way possible what you are providing to the organization. And the last one is related to value, because the point is, if you are providing something to your customers, to your organization, is because there is an expectation of a benefit from that. For example, if you say that, okay, I'm supporting portfolio management, it's because probably you identified with the C level that they cannot see a clear connection between projects and the strategy. Okay, what is the medicine for this pain? I'm going to provide support on portfolio management, right? If you understand that your managers, functional managers or directors, they see that everyone is planning projects in a different way, right? And it makes things very confusing. This is the pain. Okay, what can we do? We will provide a methodology, and people will try to use to implement a similar way of planning projects. So there is a connection between these two things. When I talk about value, it means not what you believe that value is. It's much more related of the perception of value of your customers, right? So if you say, okay, I'm providing you this medicine, and you still have pain, right? There is no value, right? So when you think this way, it's easier to understand that the third level of measurement is exactly being closely connected with your customers and understand if they can see the value that you are providing. In other words, I always say that value as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? It's not about the value that you believe you have, or the beauty that you believe you have, right? It's much more about how it's seen by those that pay the bill at the end of the month, right? So this is how I see that we should measure success. These three levels are very important.
And when we talk about the history of PMO, and as you know, Americo, PMO is started with some project managers. They create a group and they try to guide some projects, and they said we need to standardize that project. Some PMOs are working their journey like this, but then it evolved to different way, like some PMOs now managing the transformation or leading the transformation. Some PMOs are defining strategy, and as you mentioned, they are realize the benefit and they are measure the strategy, they are measure the success of organization, not just projects. And some PMOs are also prioritize portfolio. Some PMOs are working with teams to inspire them and to be more agile or to be more successful. So when we talk about the history of PMO, can you give some tips us about past, now, and future of PMOs and how PMOs will evolve?
Right, very good. Well, we have two topics in your question that I believe we could cover. The first one is about, again, what value means for a PMO, right? Usually, what we heard a lot is that, PMOs should become strategic because this way they can generate more value. It's true, but there is a specific aspect that we have to consider. The point is, we have our customers, right? As I said, everyone that we are serving within an organization. It can be the C level, executive level, project managers, considering that they are usually in the business areas, functional managers, project team members, all of them will be served by the PMO in some way, right? And the point is, the way that they see this value will be different, right? And why? Because, of course, if you are dealing with a more tactical or operational level, their needs will be different from the strategic level, right? So what I'm saying is there is nothing wrong to generate value in a more tactical operational way, right? It's also valid and important because there is a need, there is a pain, okay? So the company is not only something strategic, obviously, right? But on the other side, it's very obvious that if you are making, the top level happy, right? So the chances of recognition and thriving with your PMO will be much higher. However, there is a point that we have to consider. Probably some of you that are with us today already seen in your experience situations where you see that, hey, we could provide something more strategic, like a support in terms of portfolio management. However, our executives, they don't see value on what we are suggesting, and they should see that value because it's something important for them, but they don't have this pain, right? And why does it happen? This is the big question. Because actually, every customer has a different level of maturity. So sometimes they don't know that they don't know, right? They are executives. It means that they are very mature in the business, no doubt, but not necessarily in our topic. So it's like if you are dealing with a child that you have to raise, because if you don't feed the baby will die, right? So we need to raise this kid, and it will become more and more mature, and we'll start to see value in something that today they cannot see, they cannot absorb because of a lack of maturity. So seeking for value generation is not at a point in the in a timeline, is a journey, right? Because the way that the value will be generated and perceived by your customers will change over time. Probably more sophisticated things will be recognized when you have a proper culture, proper maturity, right? So this way you can start to offer more and more strategic medicines for strategic pains. You know what I mean? So, and this is a word, I could say that is a word of hope for many people, because sometimes in your company you see, hey, I would love to provide strategic things, and I don't have space for that. Yes, because maybe you are in the beginning of this journey. You have to raise your customers, you have to mature them, and this way they will understand the importance of what you are providing. Secondly, the other aspect is about agility, as you said, right?
Mhm.
This is something very, very interesting, because a few years ago, when agile was, in the in the trend topics, right?
Mhm.
Actually, many people they said, like, oh, PMOs don't exist in a agile world, for example. They don't make sense, right? But after some years, what we see is something a little different. Actually, PMOs are still there, right? And agile is there also, right? So hybrid approaches are maybe something that today every mature PMO is trying to implement. So we have been studying these ideas in the last years, right? Because we always said, okay, we have the agile PMO, right? And at that time, especially in the very beginning, in our first discussions, we said, hey, we don't know if it makes sense, right? Because it looks like every PMO should provide agile approaches, agile methods, methodologies, tools, right? And sometimes it doesn't make too much sense for certain companies. For example, a big energy company, so we are talking about capital projects, and most of the people that work with them say, no, it's not for me. Actually, we need a waterfall approach. It makes more sense to us. So there was a big discussion around that. But on the other side, we have, even in these companies, other areas, for example, marketing, IT, that an agile approach makes all sense, right? So that's why we have this hybrid approach. But in our discussions, there was one day, it was like 2 years ago, that we raised a question. We said, "Hey, is it possible that we have a PMO, an agile PMO, that doesn't provide any agile methodologies or approaches, so working only with waterfall?" And we realized that yes, it is possible. And why? Because for a PMO, being agile is not about what you are providing in terms of services, because it's only a detail depending on what your customer need. As I said, maybe some of them will need it, some of them will not, but it's much more about the agile mindset, right? So business agility, actually, because every PMO as a service provider with customers, with the need of deliver value in the short, medium, and long term, with the need of be adaptive, because these needs will change all the time. So your customers will need something different from time to time, and you have to understand them. You have to adapt. You have to be flexible. It's business agility. So we actually, we realized that the real agile PMO is much more about how you behave as a PMO, not about what you are providing in terms of services. In other words, in the beginning, we question if an agile PMO makes sense or not. But now, when it will be published by the end of the year, we believe that every PMO should be agile, not because we are providing agile methodologies or tools, but because agile mindset is something that is needed for any PMO. And the opposite is possible because, okay, I'm providing Scrum for IT area, but I'm not grounded on an agile mindset. So it means that I believe that that's what they need. And if somebody else asks me, like engineering area, something different, more traditional, I will say, no, everything should be agile, which doesn't make any sense. So you are not being agile if you try to make everything agile. That was a very interesting discussion. I love that. And we have many conclusions about that will start to be published now in the second semester, and with the guide at the end of the year. But in my opinion now, every PMO should be agile, not because of the methodologies, the approaches, but because of the mindset behind any customer-centric PMO.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Also, maybe you remember that 3 years ago I came to you in person and I said, "What do you think about Agile PMO and PMO GA can focus that area?" And you answered me, and you changed my mind. And I didn't ask this question till to 3 years, but we tried to
Yeah,
ask.
and you see that now we have something a little different, right? We have been, reflecting about these ideas. Of course, we have to mature. This is the point, and maturity means you are applying all of this and you are observing the forest. Because when you are applying in your company, you are a tree, right? But what is really important is that you can see the forest, how companies are doing that, and the results that they are, that are coming up. And this way we can learn from this process. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah, I really like the message. Every PMO should be agile, but in principle, right? They can
Yeah,
apply different frameworks and methodology in according to their mood or structure of projects. That's right. But should
yeah.
be agile in terms of customer focus and maybe
Exactly. I delivered a session a few time ago. The title was "Every PMO should be agile," but not because of the reasons that you thought. You
yeah.
know. So-
Fine. And also, we're also discussing another aspect in terms of project management role. You know that for project managers, that is another discussion. Of course, they also needs to be an agile. They need to have agile mindset. That's obvious. But what's your observations about your works? Because you are touching lots of PMOs and also project managers. What is their expectations about this transformation? What they should put themselves according to this maybe new era for project managers?
Well, we have more and more PMOs around the world uh, being involved with transformations, right? Even now, I think it was last year, no, last month, PMI created its transformation office. But it's about the new strategy that has recently released. So transformation is something very broad, right? So we can talk about many different possibilities of transformation, including agile transformation. And I have no doubt that PMOs can be very, very important on that. But there is something that I really believe. Before thinking about transforming your company, an agile transformation for your company, think about transforming yourself, your PMO.
Right.
You know, in all of these aspects that we mentioned a few minutes ago, because again, the big point is in the management area and also project management and PMOs, it's difficult to have the right and the wrong. There are different perspectives, different ways to do that. Something that is very successful here is a big failure there. So don't be too much don't be too much committed with your beliefs, right? Because if we keep our mind open, it will be much easier for us to really transform our PMO or our organization, because our commitment is with the value, the results that we will deliver, the outcomes, not with the technique, and those things that we usually love. I understand, but they are just the mean, right? They are not the end.
Yeah. Fine.
And the other question, maybe we can talk about the role of project manager. So it's evolving again. What do you think about the role of project manager? They still needs to manage that projects, or the role will change like a scrum master, that different type of roles. What do you think about that project manager role? Do we need these or?
Yeah, let me tell you about that, because again, depending on the company, depending on the culture of the company, the maturity of your company, the projects that you are dealing with, what will be required from a project management will be different, not only in terms of technical aspects, but sometimes behavioral aspects, right? There will be some projects that if you have a very straightforward project manager, that's exactly what you need. There will be other projects that you need someone more people oriented. So I believe we have a set of competences, and these competences will be more or less important depending on the characteristics of projects. By the way, in the last years, I've developed before PMOGA, when I was a consultant, we developed for a company something very interesting. It was a kind of we classified projects according to different characteristics, and we had this competence framework for project managers. All of them should have the same competences, but these competences would be required in a different level of proficiency depending on the characteristics of your project. So when you have a new project, you said, okay, this project is, let me see, based on this criteria, is project A. So it's a project that involves people, and okay, so let me check those project managers that we have at our house, right? In our house, with all these competencies, but a stronger competence on relationship building, for example, right? So these guys, they would be much more appropriate for that specific challenge. So this is really cool. I like this kind of approach because you are very flexible depending on what you need. But there is something else that I would like to mention, and it brings to the stage the PMO. Project managers, usually they are required to deliver something at the end, right? So we have an output or outputs, right? There are some project managers that they are also concerned about the outcome, but usually it's not the reality. Usually, the owner of the project is concerned about the outcomes, the results, business results. The project manager is there to deliver what you said to him or her that should be delivered. Tell me what you want, and I'm going to make it happen. That's it, right? A PMO professional, a PMO leader is different because there is something that come before where the project management manager work start is designing solutions. So people will not come to you and say, that's what I want. Oh, I want a methodology. That was my dream. No, it will never happen, right? And why? Because as your customers, they don't care about the medicine that you will prescribe. They only care about their pain. So this way, a PMO leader or PMO professional is much closer to a kind of consultant than to a project manager because you need to understand in a totally different level. You need to understand your customer pain and you need to create solutions. And the solutions cannot be, again, cannot be something that you believe that is the solution because in the last 20 years you have been doing that way. No, no, no. It doesn't mean anything. Success in the past doesn't mean success in the future. So I have to understand what's happening and take, those things that I know as possible solutions. And that's why PMO types, for example, they don't make sense because they are like boxes. Like let's take one. I saw that someone talking about VMOs, right? VMO is the new trend, right? But VMO or any other types of projects of PMOs like centers of excellence, agile PMO, any other that was proposed by an author or someone else, they are like boxes. If you open the box, you will see, okay, what a VMO should do. So it's like you are open a box and you find there all the medicines that your patient need without understanding your patient, right? It doesn't make any sense. So people with lower maturity, usually they are trying to find a new trend, and they say, okay, so what is trendy now? Oh, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But someone more mature as a PMO leader can understand that, okay, let me see the pains and let me open all these boxes. And I'm going to take something from the center of excellence, something from the VMO, something from the strategic office, something. And at the end, what's the name of your PMO? It doesn't matter, right? Because what really matters is that you are delivering perception of value. And the only way to deliver perception of value is hailing pains, real world pains, right? So this is what I believe. That's why I believe that PMO leaders and project managers, they are totally different types of professionals, because the challenges are absolutely different. And also the competences required. There is something that is not a coincidence. More and more, we have some people, because in the past it was like this. Okay, you were a project manager, you were successful, now you are invited to lead a PMO. Now there is something different happening. There are many people that are starting their careers at the PMO without being a project manager before that. So this is something interesting to think about.
Thank you so much. Yeah, maybe the other question. Yeah, also our audience, if you have any question, you can write.
By the way, let me take my glasses because I cannot see anything.
We can read some questions for you. I have one more question.
Yeah,
So
please.
talk about PMOs. Also, sometimes they are creating under some groups like IT PMO or sometimes business PMO, sometimes strategic PMO. So, what do you think about that PMOs? They need to report to executives, maybe the CEO, or they need to report IT, or they need to report business area. So, can we create more than one PMO under the one organization? What do you think about that topic?
Right. In terms of reporting, it depends on who your customers are, right? So it means that, okay, actually, I will serve a specific department. Okay, probably you report to the director of this area, right? I'm gonna serve the organization as a whole. Okay, possibly the executive board or one of the executives that has a more cross, approach. It's something that is very common. So the idea of the report is much more related to the people that you are serving, right? Because you need some I'm going to call authority, but it's not like that authority that we consider for project management, right? It's authority in terms of, okay, people will hear you, right? So we'll listen to what you are saying. They will give you attention. They will establish your work as a priority because they are your customers and they understand that you are doing something to benefit them, right? So there are many possibilities in terms of reporting. The idea that, oh, we should be at the top, reporting to the CEO, sometimes it's not the best solution, right? Let's suppose that the CEO is someone that is much more externally oriented than internally oriented. You have no one to really support your work. So every company will be different. We have to understand what we want, who we will serve, and based on this we have to define our suggestion, our proposal in terms of where our PMO will be connected.
And also, I believe that lots of project managers and also PMO leaders, some company leaders, some other roles and responsibilities are watching now. And maybe they have some questions in their minds. But
Absolutely.
what is your maybe urgent suggestion for them, Americo? Maybe you can share some, let's say, recommendation for them to follow in their roles and responsibilities. What
Right.
needs to do first as project managers or PMO leaders.
Right. Perfect. Okay. So in terms of, there is something that is common for both positions, right? Uh, we have something coming up that will change the game, right? And I'm talking about AI, right?
Mhm.
So actually, it will change a lot in terms of what we are doing today. What we can see today is just the top of the iceberg, the very top of the iceberg. There will be much more things that we can use in a positive way, right? The impact will be high. I have no doubt about that. But my advice is embrace it because there is no other option, right? There is no other option.
Right.
The PMI CEO, Pierre, he said in one of our recent meetings, you have only two options, right? AI is like a bus in a high speed. You have two options. You are in front of the bus or inside the bus, right?
Yes.
So I recommend that you can get into the bus, right? It will be better for you, no doubt. And it's not easy because it's a little scary, right? We don't have a clear understanding what will happen. Sometimes we don't know how to start, but try in some way, right? Try to some way. PMI has some courses for members that were recently launched. So everything can help because we need to mature. And when we are in the very start of this journey of maturity, things are really difficult because we have no idea how to start, right? So everything that you can find, it's okay, it's good. Try it. Try to use these tools that are open for us. Sometimes for free, sometimes for a very low price. There are many aspects that we should improve. We should consider security aspects. Many things, but you have to try and to start your journey as a project manager, as a PMO leader. Today we have PMI Infinity. We are now working, for example, in a PMI Infinity for PMOs because the needs are different. So there will be many, many things that will come up. By the way, AI is one of the core pillars of PMI strategy for the next years. Right? So this is the first aspect. And relating to now the differences, right, between these two positions, project managers, I believe that, again, it depends on which project you are talking about, right? I owe a 600 employees consulting company for 15 years, and actually I had many situations, many customers, many jobs that different types of project managers were required. I remember that I had a big retail company, international retail company, that they loved one of our project managers, that she was considered like very, how can I say, very uh, straightforward, So actually, she was that type of person that she did what was necessary to be done, if you know what I mean, right? And sometimes that's what you need, but sometimes you need someone that has a vision about the future, because okay, the project was successful, but now you have a scorched earth. Everything is destroyed. People hate projects, and they don't want to work in projects anymore. Okay, you deliver what was planned, but the consequences in the long term are really terrible. So it depends what you want. I cannot say, look into the reality of companies, that there is only one way. No, there are ways and ways. If there is an emergency, you have to have a different approach. And what we have about project managers are quite mature in terms of competences, in terms of practices. So except for this AI, good news, probably that's it. There is nothing that, oh, we've never thought about that. It's there, right? We have to improve our competences as we can, especially considering now this AI news. But PMOs now, there are so many PMOs that are still living 10 years ago. So it's interesting. I saw that one of our questions is exactly about the VMO. I was participating in a conference a few weeks ago about VMOs, and it's really interesting because all the time I ask myself, hey, people are talking about transforming our PMO into a VMO, and I ask myself, hey, where were you in the last 10 years that you were not concerned about value, right? And it happens because people were committed with the mean, not with the end. They were committed with the techniques, not with the real results, the real value. You know what I'm saying? And this is something that more and more will be unacceptable in companies, right? They don't believe that a PMO is needed just because, project management should be. No. If they don't see value, it's over, right? So it means that PMO leaders, especially those that brought their experience as a project manager, or they are experienced in PMOs, but in this old-fashioned way, right, of doing PMOs, they have to rethink. They have to actually reflect about these changes that are now transforming PMOs in something really different, something much more committed on delivering value for the customers, and as a consequence, delivering value to the organization, because the customers, they have goals, they have commitments, and if we help them to make all of this happen, at the end of the day, 99% of the cases, it will be exactly what we need for the organization. So this is a very different mindset, for many people. And I suggest that you can start to, to study more about that and try to make these adaptations. Like, okay, as I said, business agility is for companies, but how can I talk about business agility in a PMO context? It's not difficult to make these connections, and it will help a lot.
And maybe it will be the last question, Americo, and it will be the tough question, but short one.
Oh,
So, what's your favorite name for PMO?
yeah. No, actually, I defend a point of view about that. I usually call any PMO as PMO, even if you don't have this name. Oh, we are the Department of Project Success. My friend, are you centralizing project, program, and portfolio functions and services? Yes, you are a PMO, right? But on the other side, my advice is call the PMO as in the best way that can be well received by your company. And why I'm saying that? Sometimes you should use the trendy name. It doesn't mean that you are doing exactly that, right? But to be your PMO, be more accepted, you should call it VMO. Okay, do that, right? Do that, because you are delivering value at the end of the day. It doesn't matter, right? You don't need to follow the book, especially because if you take 5 books about VMOs, each one will propose something a little different, right? So you can choose the name you want. Otherwise, if you already have traumas, and this is something very common, right? PMOs that fail in the past. So if you come up with the idea, oh, let's have a PMO, they will say, no, we hate PMOs, we don't. It happens in many companies. So what is the solution? Call it in any other way that you want, right? Because it's not about what the PMO will deliver in terms of value at the end of the day. It's much more about the strategy that you are using to make that PMO being accepted and absorbed by the company, considering the culture, the history, the maturity of the company, and the maturity of your customers. This is something very, very important.
Thank you so much. So, I think we are end of the session now, and it was great to see you again.
Great pleasure.
Thank you,
Yes.
Americo. You shared a lot of important things, and also that's my take. We just need to focus real value instead of the name of value, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, names cannot help you, right? Especially in the medium and long term, right? Because when all the excitement is over, actually value is what should remain, right? And value is not about what you believe value should be. It's about what your customers understand and see as value that you are delivering to them.
Thank you so much. I think we will see you in Saudi Arabia in Global Project Management Forum.
Yes, and maybe in Istanbul in October, right? Let's see at PMI chapter event. It will be a great pleasure.
Thank you so much, Americo. And again, thank you for our attendees to listen.
Absolutely, great pleasure. And by the way, if anyone needs to talk to me, actually you can keep in touch, sending email americo.pinto@pmi.org. Americo.pinto.
To reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
And take care of yourself.
Bye bye. Have a nice day. Bye bye.
You too.